a house with Ani the Cohen. Ani is saying, eating his dinner with bread and salt, and the Cohen's on the set saying Kriya Shema. Gimel is a Gamal, 3 camels in Ruin, the first carrying the line of the dove, the second carrying Eliyahu Navi, the third carrying David HaMelech. Daled is a Daled, a door spanning from Gulu to the Kotel, upon which David HaMelech is wearing his chassid costume. Hay is a haystack. Rabbi Yochanan is saying Kriya Shema, Alamita on the haystack, but suffering terribly as he is poked. And Vav is a stick being waved by Rav Zera, running behind the shul, chasing away the Mazikin who are looking for Shem's tefillin, because they heard that's where Shem is to be found. And now we're on Daf 9 on the base.
You're making other pages. We got Daf base.
Working on it, yes. I did Gimel. Actually, where's that? Yes, there's a bit of a backlog. Anyways, here's Gimel. And I did Vav. I'm almost caught up. But it has to be written out neatly. It'll come to you. I spent my day yesterday, my piece of the day, that I would do that kind of thing, yesterday, making like that chart. Sorry. So anyways, we're getting there. It's all coming together. So, Ruben's going to help us.
Yes,
Ruben. Space for when it does come. Okay, so we're holding on Daf Zayin now. As Hashem, we are on Zayin base. I managed to number my page, so we're holding on line number 23, which is actually the first and only medium-sized line at the end there. So we've been talking about Hanhagas. Let me get the record on. I'm sorry. Now that it's not to record. Okay, yes. So Zayin base, line 23. We've been talking about the Hanhagas Hashem on Daf Zayin, and we segued into the idea of the Hanhaga as requires someone to recognize Hashem in that capacity. Hence, we got into Avram, who was the first to call Hashem Adon and recognize this Adnus, Hashem functioning as the master of the world, and related to Hashem as the master. And once we talk about names, we ended up saying, oh, by the way, Leah was the first to recognize a different Hanhaga of Hashem, I guess, recognize Hashem in a different way, relate to him in a different way, and she gave Hoda'ah, calling her son Yehuda. And then we said, oh, by the way, since we're talking about the boys, we'll talk about Reuven. And yesterday we talked about Leah's child Reuven, saying, look at my son, who was different than my father-in-law's son, meaning Reuven was different than Esav, in many ways, I suppose, but in as much as Reuven wasn't bitter about losing his Bechorah to Yosef and actually tried to save Yosef, whereas Esav was resentful to the end. So, that's what we're up to. And one of the things I said yesterday was this Gra, which I only saw in the article footnote that it's inside, that the Gemara picked up on Reuven as opposed to Shimon Levi and so on, only because Reuven is the only name where first Leah gives the name, but the parent, Brachot also first gives the name and then it gives a rationale subsequent to it, as opposed to first having some rationale and saying, oh, I'll call a name because of that rationale. So because of that, the Gra understands that the rationale is the whole answer, it's just part of the answer, and there's this prophetic, words put into Leah's mouth when she named her child Reuven, and we discussed that. We'll discuss more on that today. In any case, here, we're jumping, we're in the topic, but we're jumping around a bit. The first word after the 2 dots there on line 23 is Rus. So Rus here, Ruth. We're talking about, as Rashi points out, Ruth, the person, a Moabiyah, the Moabite. And we're going to say, why was her name My Rus? Why was she called Rus? What was the name about? So, but Rashi understands, by the way, I believe Rashi understands, that was her birth name. That she was born as a Moabite woman with the name Rus. And I don't know if she found Rus or Ruth, I don't know. But anyways, that was her name. And the question, perhaps, lots of possibilities, what the exact question is, but why did she get the name? Why did she stick with the name and not change it after she converted? There is a midrash that says that Rus's original name was Gilit, and that she changed it to Rus, but whatever it is. Her name was Rus. To us, the question is what's that name indicative of, and what was that ultimately, something that was, let's call it prophetic, and how she ended up, her life unfolded. Rav Yochanan, she was called Rus, Shezachta, because she was meritorious, V'yatz Mamena David, and out of her came David HaMelech, and he was Sherivauhu, Sherivahu l'Kadosh Baruch Hu b'shiros v'tishbachos. And David, this word is from the word rivaya, as in like kosi rivaya, like my cup. So it's always translated like cup runneth over, I guess in the old school translation. But rivaya, as opposed to svia, means I don't know, like the full satisfaction you get when you're like from drinking. Rivayon is like having your thirst slaked, for lack of a better word. Satiated, yeah, but it's like this, the thirst angle. Rivaya, I think rivaya goes to liquids like drinking specifically. So the point is that David HaMelech had his shirot and tishbachot that were sufficient, sort of, I don't know, like, is the word slake, S-L-A-K-E, like too weird a word to pull up? I don't know a better word in English. To say, okay, we'll use say, because that's fine. To say Hashem's, I guess, thirst for shira, I don't know exactly. But the point is, like kosi rivaya, like, you know, more could Hashem ask for. His cup runneth over, so to speak, meaning like with the praises that David HaMelech was able to create in his Tehillim, etc., that totally satisfied Hashem. So the full sentence reads, she was called Rus, Shezachta v'yatzmin David, because out of her came David, Sherivahu l'Kadosh Baruch Hu b'shir tishbachot. David HaMelech sated, let's call it, Hashem with his shir tishbachot. So I remember as a child, I wasn't a child, I was old already, but I remember the first times I learned this Gemara, I learned it incorrectly, in a humorous way, but I'm going to point out to you lest you fall into the same trap, that the word shirot, the tishbachot, has the word resh, vav, taf. So I thought that the pshat of the Gemara was that she had David, and David satisfied Hashem with shirot, and like, you know, that this shirot was like the... I'm saying what isn't pshat. It was like a ridiculous. Can you tell me an eraser if you want? No, just No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm just saying what isn't the pshat. It says that David HaMelech satisfied Hashem with. Why is her name Ruth? Question mark. Because he made shirot, batish, whatever. So the point is, I thought this was the plan word, shirot, but roots. But that's not pshat at all. It's just like just a wrong turn. It's because I remember I was like didn't know what was going on. Anyways, the thinking is that this name root is like rivaya is related to this word, rivaya, and this like. To quench. I want slake. That's what it means. But anyway, since that word is so weird, I realize I would quench, which quench is a word that probably isn't familiar to people, right? So I'm sure it is. So like Hashem's thirst for whatever it is was quenched because there was so much coming out of David HaMelech's creation. So she was called a root because out of her Hashem was satisfied. His thirst was quenched. That's what okay. So that's that. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So and that's that. That's the whole story here. So moving on now, we're still on 124. The Gemara asks the general question. Okay. It says Manalan. Like, how do we even know in the first place the Shema Garim that literally that a name is. Causative, yeah. It's more, I used the word prophetic before, but Garim is more than just portentous. I mean, it's not just that. The question isn't how do we know that the parents get a special nevuah and their name is a great fit for who they end up being, what they end up doing. It's not. That's how many explain this phenomenon, but that's what the words mean. Shema Garim means like that. The name is causative, and actually it's an impetus for what happens in the person's life, which is much more than just prophetic. But so how do we know that the name is significant to the point that person, when I say stupid is as stupid does. Now, so a person his name is indicative of what he'll end up doing in some way. How do you know that? Because there's a pasuk, the pasuk, Amar of Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Kra, because the pasuk in Tehillim says, L'chu, go out, Chazu, and behold, Mif'alat Hashem, the great works of Hashem, Asher Sam Shamot Ba'aretz. The pasuk says, Hashem Sam placed Shamot, which is like, Shamama is like destruction. So it's Hashem placed destructions, plural, in the land. End of quote. So that's a very strange pasuk. We're going to say Al Tikri Shamot. Don't read it as destructions, Shamot. El Shemot, names. So understand, this isn't just like a wild Al Tikri that they're looking for any excuse to understand something. The verse isn't there. The Asher Sam Shamot, that Hashem placed destructions in the world, is a very strange thing to say for at least two reasons. The first is grammatically, it should have said he puts Shama or Shamama. It's like what devastations. It's weird. In English it sounds as weird as it does in Hebrew. It should say Hashem placed devastation, destruction. So what's the pluralness? And there's a second, that's like a grammatical issue. There's also a hashkafic issue, which is you wouldn't ascribe normative hashkafa is not to ascribe bad things happening to Hashem. Everything happens because of Hashem, but Hashem usually isn't considered to be like the agent of the Ra. Usually it's his absence. He's not an active agent of Ra. It's his siluk, it's his passive, his absence in which Ra can exist. The pasuk of Hashem Borei Ra, I'll talk another time if you know that pasuk. But anyways, the point is it's just hashkafi strange. Like, why would we say Hashem placed, Hashem is an active agent making destruction? It should be something like, you would normally say Hashem, was Ozev and Hashem abandoned in the wake of Hashem's, like we discussed it, for example, when we talked about the Chorban, we talked about the two levels of Hechali, I burned down my Hechal, and Hecharabti as basic. We talked about 2 steps. Hashem first removed the Shekhinah, and then it was ready to be destroyed by the agents, whoever they were. In that case, it was the Romans destroying the Beis Hamikdash, but Hashem just abandons it, and then the other agent does it. So it's a little strange that Hashem is being the one who's getting the credit for being the active agent of destruction. So, not discussing that pasuk or what it does mean, but the Gemara understands as a drasha that the reason why we said this strange grammatical construct, and or two different, unfortunately, two different problems, but and or strange grammatical construct, and or strange hashkafic concept, why we say it that way, because we're trying to squeeze in another concept, which is not just that Hashem wrought destruction, but he placed Shemot, names, which is the exact same, Shamot and Shemot are the same without the Nekudot, that Hashem placed names into the world. That's what it means. Al Tikri, to read it as Shamot, destructions, El Shemot, Hashem placed, names to everything, and those names are significant. Hashem placed the names, and those names have their role to play in how, history unfolds.
How the world is destroyed.
No, how all history unfolds, how all history unfolds. That's a big deal. I don't know, it's just a half a line where I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's certainly significant. Like you see, Adam Rishon, perhaps a big heavy-duty part of what Adam Rishon is and does, and what sets him apart, is his ability to name things. And those names are considered to be like this, like a relation of the essence of the thing, and actually meaning that the Shema is garam, like it's in other words, it's something. I was speaking totally metaphorically. I don't think it's too far. But if someone maps out your genes, right, like your DNA, so and he gives it names, so to speak, and describes it. The description of the genes isn't just a description of you. That's in other words, like this. Let me take a step back. If I'd say, yeah, I know the guy well. He has curly hair and blue eyes, and 6'3", so that's a description of him. But it's first there's him, and then I'm just looking at him and I'm describing him. But if I describe his genes, his like the genetic code genes. I mean, I'm not saying, oh, it happens to be that his genes code for a 6'3" curly hair, blue eyes. It's that the genes are what are making him have the curly hair and being 6'3". So that's what David Melech was, so to speak, doing. He was looking at this thing and saying, oh, this is like his whole heart. We'll call him a Kalev, and they him Kelev, like that kind of thing. So that's what's going on. Hashem giving names. By calling her root, it's because something deep in her was this rivaya, the satisfaction of Hashem, which would come out of her. And Reuven, besides for just being what Leah had in mind, look, Hashem sees my troubles, and now He gave me a son, so my husband Yaakov will pay attention to me. It's that he would be somehow an example of how a band is meant to be, relative to, in contrast to Esau and so. That's what Shema Garam is. But the name, kind of like the DNA, is like it's causative, not just a prophetic, insight to what the person is, but the name has impact. That's why many Jews take like the naming very, very seriously because they're afraid. Like oftentimes, it's far more this than Ashkenaz, but true this, but Ashkenaz do it too. That they make a shidduch, they see their name, they take the makubal, and they say, this is a good shidduch, and looks at the name, says, oh no good, and so on. You'll name your kid, and the makubal say, oh no, you have to, and so on and so forth. And also, I should say, also very normative. That's like, I don't want to say it's not normative, but even more like well known. We've all been exposed to it. Is that when a person has like is facing death, they will change the person's name, adding in like a chaya to the name chaya to her name, let's say. The point is, there's the issue of changing the name and changing the mazel, but the Shema Garam will throw in like a chaya, like life, hoping that will be an impetus to change her future, and so on, a chayim, a man, and so on and so on. So that's the Shema Garam, the name has significance. Okay, good. So we've been, just if you take a step back, we've been going through lots of statements, Rabbi Yochanan, Shem Yochai. So here comes another one. Like, you can't tie it, I don't think you could tie it directly to what we said before. It's like we're just wandering ever further away from our original topic in the Mishnah, but that's how it goes here. So Rabbi Yochanan, Shem Yochai, we're on line 26, the third long line. Kashe tarbus ra b'toch beiso shel adam. It's more difficult for a person to deal with, obviously when I translate, I'm forced to give some parish here, but that's literally kasha means it's hard, but it means it's worse. Tarbus ra, we saw the word, if you remember way back to Bava Kama Mishnayos, we saw that we talked about certain animals being b'nei tarbut, which were domesticated animals, like so. They grew up and they were socialized and learned how to behave as opposed to wild animals. You can have b'nei tarbut, you can have a domesticated, I don't know what, bear, it's not a good example, whatever. You can have a domesticated versus a wild animal. So the point is like it's socialized and learn how to fit in the mold that society expects of it. So the same goes for parents. You're raising your child. You expect your child to embrace your values more or less and be sort of socialized and civilized in the framework that you want. So tarbut ra, which I'm sure our translated like rebellious child or something like that, but it means that it didn't catch the socialization, the cultivation, the civilization that you intended to imprint on your child didn't catch, and that kid is like, as opposed to being like a domesticated set member of society, he's like a wild member of society, a wild member of the household. So that's called tarbut ra. It didn't catch properly. So that having a child, like loosely speaking, we could say a kid off the derech. That's what it means, right? That you want your kids to be from, and like sort of dumbing it down, but just make it more meaningful like this. It's more difficult to deal with the child that's going off the derech than it in your own home. That's like a bigger assignment, bigger trouble. Then and more aggravating. Then Milchamas Gog u'Magog, like the Milchamas Gog u'Magog is the famous war to end the wars that will precede Mashiach. But in Gog u'Magog, like lots of people die. It's miserable. The point is, having a kid in your house that's going for the derech is worse than Gog u'Magog. How do you see that? So it says, Shnei Amar, the pasuk says, so David Melech, who's a Navi, right? So when he said one Tehillah, he said Mizmor LeDavid, V'Varcho Mipnei Avshalom B'no. He made a Mizmor when he was fleeing from his son Avshalom. Shalom was a rotten kid who famously rebelled against his father and basically tried to take over and become the king unlawfully, and he slept with his father's wives and all Balagan. So it's a story there you can check it out, the Shmuel base. But Avshalom was disastrous. The point is, David Melech's son was disgusting, and that was horrible for David. And Uksiv Basrei, David, in portraying his emotions regarding the situation, he says, Hashem, ma rabu tsarai, like look at how many, afflictions I have, afflictors I have. Rabim kamim alai, and so many people have come upon me in this horrible situation. It's like pretty bad. Rabu tsarai, ma rabu tsarai is like, why have I got so much torment? Rabim kamim alai, and so many people are, pursuing me, chasing me. That's very bad. But V'ilu Gavim Milchamas Gog Magog, when David Melech sort of has this prophetic vision of Gog and Magog, and he articulates his emotion, like how the emotions are related to it, then he just says, Lama Rag Shugoyim, why are the nations getting all worked up? Like, what's the big deal? Umim Yegu Rik, and people, chit-chatting about, nonsense. All this political commentary that's meaningless. So there, he basically is saying, what's the big deal already? Like, nothing to get that worked up about in geopolitics. It'll work itself out. So the point is, that David Melech sort of poo-pooed Gog and Magog, Filu Marabu Tsarai Lo Ksiv. He didn't mention about like what a nightmare it's going to be.
Isn't it though possible that it's because one thing was right in front of him, and
it's
was
certainly
affecting
possible.
him more
Yes.
personally?
It's certainly possible, but yes, but the Gemara seems to understand that David Melech. Yes, that's an obvious question, which I don't have a great answer to. I had the same question. The question is, like, how can you compare? David Melech is suffering from Avshalom. How can you compare that to like his prophetic vision of what will be?
Right.
So the Gemara clearly doesn't understand that way. And that's an obvious question. So the best I've come to terms with it, I hope if you have a better answer, I'm all ears, is if you're a Navi, the Navi experience is like a different kind of experience than, it's not just a philosophical musing about the future. It's somehow an experience, like a dream that you were there. I don't know exactly, but we wake up and say, oh, thank God it was just a dream. Yeah, but if it's a nevuah, it wasn't just a dream. Like you really were there, just you were the wrong. You're back from the future, but you were there. So it's like more real. So it's, I guess David was. If anyone was in touch with their emotions, it was David Melech. So David Melech was equally in articulating his emotional. That's why I describe it that way. His emotional state and related to Avshalom. David Melech was like Mr. Emunah B'tachon, right? So it's not that he didn't forgot Hashem had abandoned him yet. He was just feeling terrible. Notwithstanding Hashem was with him, like, how Hashem, how can you do this to me? He was like very worked up. But he wasn't worked up at all, relatively speaking, by Gog and Magog.
You could also say that he saw the outcome of the Milchama.
Mashiach, the
Mashiach, and that's why wasn't so upset about it.
Maybe, but for all those things, the Gemara is taking the Gemara is making. I don't know. I had two approaches to the Gemara. One is like I just told you. The other approach is like maybe a little more on the the kind of thing you don't want to say on recording, but I'll say it anyways on the tape. Which is like I can't help but wonder if the Gemara didn't have whoever Reb Shimon Bar Yochai had a point to make, and he looked for Sukkim to back up his point. When we start saying that stuff, that starts like conservative rabbi talk. But anyways, his point was, if that's true, maybe it's not, maybe it's borderline heretical to say such a thing. The point that Shimon Bar Yochai was saying is, there's nothing. He was saying in a vacuum, teaching his Talmidim, there's nothing worse than a kid off the derech. The kind of emotional pain you have, you can't imagine. So terrible. I don't know if he experienced that or not. I don't know if he would have. But the point is, nothing could be worse than investing in a child and watching the child go rotten. And then to brings a proof to that. Look how much David Melech suffered in reflecting upon Avshalom, which is like nothing compared to looking at the whole world fall apart. And even if, and maybe that's all you have to say. In other words, the point is, objectively, objectively, the world falling apart is worse than an individual kid going off the derech. But to the dad, the world can go to pot for all I care. It's my kid that's making me, my kid that's what's killing me.
You have everything invested in it.
Yeah, exactly. Your world is falling apart. Your direct world is falling apart in this child. It's much more poignant And that's kasha. Kasha is, I don't know what it exactly means, it's hard to translate, but it means, I assume means hard to deal with on your own personal psychology, not of course in the grand scheme of things. One person off the derech is, insignificant compared to World War III, which is what Gog and Magog is, right? But notwithstanding, for you to deal with, if you see your child, that I don't know what I'm saying is true, but
You said in the introduction that sometimes the Gemara will use like 400, they'll exaggerate.
Yeah,
So this could be an exaggeration to make the point that it's a terrible thing. It's like it's a billion trillion. It's
right.
just
Maybe
using some
right.
Obviously everybody understands, that it's.
It's just it comes when I get nervous when to do that because then it becomes a slippery slope, right? So, but here it could be that. So I'm sort of dancing on that fence. I'm sort of leaning that way in the second part I'm saying, but I'm equivocating and saying it's not as rabbi-ish as it sounds because we're only talking about the emotional state of the person. We're talking about how much you Rahman al would suffer if you had to face your child with a derech versus you had to face, the world with a pot. You shrug your shoulders and say, okay, just to take a muscle, if you will. There are many stories and books that are written, the indomitable Jewish spirit, and even in the Auschwitz, they were lighting candles, you couldn't crush our spirit, let's say. But the point is, he's saying, it's much more difficult to have your spirit not be crushed if it's your own child that's gone bad, than if the whole world's falling apart around you. And that could be, when you talk about people's emotions, then, I'm talking about what's a rational approach and how you feel. Either way, I don't know, but one thing's for sure, is the point of the Gemara is it's terrible. It's hard to imagine how terrible it is to have invested in this human being who's gone wrong. And really, Tarbut Ra, I don't know, I sort of dumbed it down to Off the Derech. Avshalom was worse than Off the Derech, just understand that. Avshalom didn't just, it's not just that David Melech wanted to be a nice for boy and he decided I'm not going to yeshiva, I'm going to go, that's not what happened here. He basically said, I'm taking over, I'm overthrowing you, and I'm becoming the king, and I'm sleeping in your bed, and I'm taking your wives, it was bad news, So that's, and killing you, he went to kill him, went to kill his father. So Tarbut Ra, that's often an extreme case. Okay, anyways, the Gemara's point is, however literal we're meant to take it, is taken that it's very difficult for a person to deal with someone whose child has gone bad. That's the story. Fine. Good. Okay. Yeah, questions want to move. There's lots of these short little vignettes going on. So here's the next one. On line 26 and 8. 28 the two dots. Mizmor. Okay, so Gemara now reflecting on that point. We're not on the main points of the what's worse or what's kasha, but simply that David Melech, when he wrote the Kapitel Tehillim about Avshalom, he wrote Mizmor David beBarachom Mipnei Avshalom Beno. Now Mizmor, I don't know how to translate Mizmor, but it means a happy song. How they translate it? Oh, they do translate it. Song. Okay, but the point is the connotation of Mizmor is a happy song, right? And that's so strange. Why is David singing a happy song about his son, going totally bananas? So it shouldn't have.
Can keep his son away.
Right. So the question, but it's the wrong word grammatically. It shouldn't say Mizmor David. It shouldn't say David's joyous song. It should have said Kinla David, David's lament over his son having gone rotten. And that's the question here. Mizmor David. It should have said Kinla David mi boile. It should have said David's lament over the story. Question mark. So the answer, David was still happy about something. Amr B'Shim ben Avishalom. Fascinating, of course, that his name is tied in there with Avshalom, whatever that means. Mashal ma davar domeh. What's this like? That David was happy about his son going bananas. The Adam sheyatza lav shtarko. It's like a person who has this debt he has to pay, and the Marsha speaks out. It's a debt that he can't afford to pay. This is the story of my life today. With April 15th tax day, I don't think I have enough money in my bank account to pay the tax bill. So you feel terrible, right? It's horrible. Kodum sheparo, before you pay it, haya atzav, you're depressed because you don't know how you're going to deal with it. La'acha sheparo, but as soon as you've managed to pay your debt, then sameach, the weight of the world is off your shoulders. So that's what happened with David, because David Melech was told that he's going to have sorrows from his home, but he didn't know from where or how it'd be. So that's like analogous to like this bill that he's afraid he can't even afford to pay it. Like, it'll bankrupt him, emotionally, whatever the story is. So before it happened, David Melech is panicked. So I'll place here. Afkin, same goes with David. Kivan sha'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when Hashem said to him, Hineni mekim alecha ra mebesecha, I'm bringing something terrible to rise up against you from your own home. So then Hayat Sav, he thought, oh my gosh, that's too much to bear. He was miserable. Amar Shem Eved or Mitla Mamzer, maybe the person's going to come after me will be a slave or a Mamzer. A Mamzer is famously, first of all, I'm not sure if it's a little weird, but it went out. Like, it's a little weird to say there were Mamzerim and David Melech's household. Like, who are they? I don't know what that means exactly. This is a kasha without a carrot that I don't know of. Like, where's the Mamzer? David Melech and Mamzerim for children? What does that mean? But anyways, leaving that kasha out because I haven't got teretz for it. The point is, Mamzerim are like notoriously brazen. And the point is, if it's an Eved or a Mamzer that would be out of the household coming to get David, then it'll be the lo chayas alike. They want to be rachim, they want to be mercy on me, no pity on me. Kivin the chaza the Avshalom, but one David Melech saw it was Avshalom that was the fulfillment of this prophecy, and he was who was pursuing David. Sameach, he figured, okay, it'll be okay because this is something I ultimately can deal with. Mishum hachi amar mizmor, and for that he said mizmor. So once he saw his Avshalom, he said, at least this too will pass because he'll have mercy on me. And the Meforshim, there are some Meforshim that say interestingly like this. The story how played out with Avshalom and David is, David Melech had to run for his life. Avshalom basically took over. Yeah, it's actually happening. Like, you can picture the story because it's happening there in the Jerusalem that you know. Right, David Melech was in Ir David, just to the south of the Dakota, just to the south, like down the hill, past the gate down there. Ir David, that's where David was. And his home and camp got taken over by Avshalom. David had to flee for his life up to further east, up to Har Mishka, what do you call it, the Har Zaysim, the Mount Olives. So he's running up the Mount Olives, like barefoot. It says, he's fleeing for his life. And the advisor for Avshalom was Achitophel. We've seen Achitophel before. Who remembers where we saw him before? Achitophel did appear before. Yeah, that's right. At the very bottom of, that's right, exactly right. That's right. At the very bottom of where David introduced on the third camel, David at the bottom of Giving the base. We talked to David getting up at midnight, and then in the morning what happens, they all come in and said, your people are Tzarchem Reuben, and he says, okay, so Pashadim Begdud. So then these people walked in to consult with him. We had the order of things. So the Yoetz was Achitophel, that was the advisor.
He was like David's Rabbi.
He was like his advisor, exactly. And the pasuk says, and it's brought there, that the counsel of Achitophel was like taking counsel from Hashem himself. Like he was like the Uber Muncha. And Achitophel, who originally was David's like chief of staff, became David's nemesis and went to Avshalom and was the counsel against David. So Achitophel told Avshalom he should sleep with all of David's concubines, which he did do, like in public, to make it clear that that this was no going back. And then Achitophel said, now David, you should send like this lightning strike force and get David because he's taken unawares, so you'll be able to kill him. Now there's a chance to kill David before he can, because he'll get David was ruled by the people still largely. It was a independent civil war, but David had a power base, so David could have marshaled troops. But he didn't have a chance yet because he was in flight mode. So Achitophel said, just quick, send like a strike force and kill him now while you can. And Avshalom hesitated. And many Meforshim say, this is the rach, the chayes, the rachmim, the pity that David was happy about, and that Taka was. That Achitophel, balked and pulled the trigger because he was afraid to kill his father, subconsciously. Consciously just think, is this a good strategy? Should we send a small force? And he actually got, in the end, Hushi gave him different advice, no, wait to get a bigger force and then you'll for sure win. And in the delay, his hesitation allowed David to regroup and ultimately win, and Avshalom was killed. So the point is that many Meforshim understand that David Taka was right. In other words, that because he wasn't totally ruthless and heartless, Avshalom was 99.9% ruthless and heartless, but something, that the thought of, killing your father is obviously enough, that made him whatever, it made him So whatever it was, Hashgacha had it, but he balked. He didn't, and in faltering to pull the trigger, Avshalom ultimately lost and David rose up. So that talk is true. It's worth thinking about, so to speak. Yeah.
Maybe he had a nevuah that he would win, and that's why it was the reason why.
This could be. But where he would have the nevuah, that's the story of our Gemara here. Without that explicit nevuah, like it'll be okay because if it's my son, in the end, somehow it's going to work out. And this
From this came the famous phrase, "He who hesitates is lost."
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. That's what happened. So, okay. Let's sit down in this story here. So, you have a question? Okay. Good. Fine. So now we have a new story here. We're on line 31. Okay. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Then is the 6th. Shim Barachai. Mutalis garot b'rashayim olam hazeh. You are allowed to take up issue with Rishayim in this world. That means if you see people misbehaving, so it's not good. Well, the halacha comes out a little elsewhere. I'm beginning in the first time of Shalach. The time speaks out in the Mishabura. Like it's not good to engender yourself in the brazenness. You're fighting for the right thing, but it has a nasty consequence. So you don't want to, stick to your guns in a way that it's right to stick to your guns, but you should try to avoid it if you can because it ingrains this very bad meat of azus into a person. So here there's a funny phrase, mutar. You're allowed to take up arms against, take up issue against a Rasha. So it could be the issue is like one of midos, like just maybe just let Hashem wage his own wars. Why should you become like hardened? It has an impact. Certainly now it's much more well known, like the impact, the psychological impact that going to war has on people. It's obviously it's very very harsh to see. If as one of my kids said to me yesterday. After you see something, like even a video, like you're participating, I forgot the context was, you feel like you're in it. I forgot what he's saying. But I remember as a little child, I remember like seeing like a kung fu movie, and I remember like jumping on my bed, like jumping on my mother's bed. After it's like you think you're like the kung fu man, like you. It has an impression. You turn into the thing that you witnessed. So obviously you're firsthand experiencing something, so you become like belligerent. So maybe the pshat is mutter. It's mutter to fight. Then you might have thought, well, you're going to become like a nasty, belligerent, difficult to get along with person, but notwithstanding, you could do it. And other pshat would be that it's dangerous. Like, you can get yourself into big mischief. You fight with Rishayim, and the next thing you know, they have their henchmen, burying at sea or, whatever, doing bad stuff to you, to fight back. So, whatever the pshat is, we're saying it's A-okay to contend with wicked people, Bolam Hazeh. A lot of talk about what Bolam Hazeh is supposed to mean, whatever it means. Either before Mashiach comes, whatever it is. But you can take up arms against and fight with the tzaddik, with the Rasha. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Oz ve'Torah yahalbu Rasha. The people who abandon the Torah, they're the ones who praise the Rishayim, Shomrei Torah, and the people who keep the Torah, Yizgaru, that's the same word, right? Yizgaru bam, they should fight with them. So the point is, Taka should be a little bit, bellicose. You should fight for what's right, and if people are doing wrong, you should take up issue with them. Tanya Nami Hachi, you have a brayso that says the same thing. Rab Dustai bar Matun, Omer, Mutlas Garas Barashayim, Bolam Hazeh. You're allowed to fight with Rashayim Bolam Hazeh. This Garot to contend with. No, it's different. Never mind. So, Shenemar, the pasuk says, Oz ve'Torah yahal Rasha. Again, those who abandon Torah are the ones who praise the Rishayim. That you should see a lot. You see that a lot, by the way. People who have gone off the derech are the ones that have all these complicated rationales for why all sorts of bad behavior is really good behavior, etc. That's what the pasuk is focusing on. Now, v'im lachshecha adam, if someone should come whisper in your ear, I'm convinced the pshat means the little voice inside your head should tell you, right? Your conscience. It doesn't mean that literally, but maybe it means it also, or whatever it is. But if something whispers in your ear, something or someone whispers in your ear, Lomar, and says, no, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do it. Haksiv, because another verse says, Al titchar b'mreim, don't contend with bad guys. Al tikaneh ba'osei avla, and don't, be a kanoi, like Pinchas the kanoi. Don't be like a zealot against those who do bad. Another pasuk says, don't fight with them and don't be a zealot against them. But let them be. And Hashem will take care of them. So if the little voice in your head or someone whispers a little voice in your head, you can't fight with these guys, just let them be and keep your head down, because that's what the pasuk says. Amar lo, you should tell the little guy with the whispering voice, Mish libo nokfo omar kain. It's just someone who's got a guilty conscience. Libo nokfo is an idiom Chazal uses a lot. Literally means that your heart like pounds in his chest, something like that. But libo nokfo means someone who's
regretful.
Got a bad feeling about it. That's a good expression. You say I have a bad feeling about this, or a guilty, which often means because you. So that's libo nokfo means something like that. That only someone who's got here it's like you got a guilty conscience in that case. Yeah, only someone who's got a guilty conscience. He's the guy who thinks, I better not. I know who's weak on the inside. Omer can Ella, because that's not the pshat in the pasuk. The verse that little voice was whispering, which said al tischar b'marim, don't fight with, don't contend with wicked people, and don't be zealous against those who do avla, bad things. That's what it means. Ella al tischar b'marim, what it means is lios k'marim. Don't contend with them to be wicked like them. That's the point. Like don't go into competition. See, you can't be a bigger, competition with the guy to be as bad as him. And al tikanei ba'osei avla, the word here is not like kanai being a zealot. Doesn't mean that. Lios ka'osei avla, to be like kina is like jealous. Don't be jealous of him. So the point is, the guy is a gambler and a thug, so then don't say, I want to be like that too, and become jealous of him and his way of life, because you see he's, living fast and die young. Don't fall into the trap and try to compete, live faster and die younger than him. But Omer, not only that, but another pasuk says, Al yikna libecha b'chatayim, you shouldn't be jealous of the sinners. Ki'im b'yiras Hashem kol hayom. Who you should be jealous of are the guys who are able to have yiras Hashem all day. Yeah. Things are only skin deep. So that's the point. So again, just to follow the thought of the Gemara. The Gemara said, black and white, you are allowed to take up issue with Rishayim, and if we brought a verse that you should take up issue, and if the little voice in your ear says don't, the pasuk says you shouldn't take up issue against wicked people and be zealous against them, that's not the pshat. The pshat in that pasuk is you shouldn't try to be like them and should be jealous of them. Period. So new paragraph, if you will, same topic, new paragraph. The Gemara says, Eini, is that true? That being that you are allowed and you're allowed to take up arms, whatever it is, take a fight with Rishayim. But what about this? Yitzchak, Imra'isa Rasha Shasha Maschekes Lo. If you see a wicked person that is literally means that the hour is fortuitous for him. But it means he's
going well.
On a roll. Yeah, he's on a roll. You see everything's going right for this guy. As oftentimes happens. You can't understand how he's getting away with everything, but he is getting away with everything. And everything's falling into place, and it's all just going right for him. So. If you see a Russia who it's just his lucky day and everything's going right for him, al tizgarabo, don't fight with him on that day. Or that part of his life. Now just get out of the way because he'll steamroll you. Shnei as the pasuk says, a different pasuk in Tehillim. Let me read the whole pasuk to you actually, because the pasuk is a well-known pasuk. We're going to break it into pieces.
Don't fight with him, or don't compete with him like before?
No, just stay out of his way. Just if the guy if he's on when he's having his lucky streak, just keep your head down and steer clear because it'll just steamroll you. Because the pasuk in Mishlei and
because that goes against what it said before.
Right, that's a kasha. That's the Eini. The Gemara said you see him, you should contend with him. Now we're saying Eini, is that true? But we have another source which tells you if you see he's on a streak, just get the heck away from him because he's going to mow you down.
Translates both as contend.
Right,
Both what is contend?
contend, don't fight with him.
Yeah, contend.
Contend
Like
is
the contender in the ring. Don't be on the other side of.
Contend is to compete, no?
To go against.
Don't follow your
To
question.
fight, to oppose.
Oppose, yeah, oppose. So don't oppose him because, when he's on a streak of, 40 KOs in a row, now's the time to prove your hot stuff. But, he's going to mow you down too. So that's the point, or whatever it
So
is.
you gotta use your judgment then, because in the previous situation it said.
That's a kasha. That's saying kasha. The
Yeah.
kasha is how can you say
I know,
you
it's
should
not
stand
wrong.
up to him because it's saying you shouldn't stand up to him, right? But here's the pasuk where the pasuk says Yechil Duracha B'Kol Eight. He'll throughout all the time he's successful. Marom Mishpatecha Minegdo, like he's above the law. Literally, you Hashem, your laws have been like lifted off of him. He's operating above the law. Because he's the mafia, whatever it is. Called Sarav Yafiach Behem. He just blows away all his enemies. So you can imagine like a mobster or something. Now he's on a roll, and you can't fight with the guy. So that's Rabbi Dustai said. I'm sorry. Who was it? Rabbi Yitzchak, you're thinking. Rabbi Yitzchak said, no, if you see the Russia is on his roll and everything's going right for him, because he's got the police chiefs in his pocket, the story is, now's the time to take up arms with him because he'll knock you over. As the pasuk says, those three things. Yechil Duracha B'Chol Eis, he'll be successful on everything he does. Marom Mishpatecha Minegdo, he's as if he's above the law of Hashem's law. And Kol Tzarav, all his opposition, Yafiach Behem, he just blows, literally, Yafiach is to blow, like out of your mouth. He blows them away. So, because now we're in the drasha. Shneimar, the pasuk says, Yechil Duracha B'Chol Eis, he succeeds in his path is successful in everything, every moment.
Is that the end of the pasuk?
But I read to you the whole pasuk. The first in the Gemara, Yechilu Duracha B'Chol Eis is end quote, but actually the first third of the pasuk. That's why I read it all together. So now we're going to darshan that we're not only v'lo'od, not only is he successful all the time, because that's the shamas chekeslo part of the pasuk. Right? And the pasuk says, if you see a Rasha who's shamas chekeslo, which means the hour is fortunate for him. So that's the pasuk says Yechil Duracha B'Chol Eis. Throughout that whole period, he is successful in all he does. That's shamas chekeslo. So that's proof. But then below Od, the Gemara says, not only is he going to be fortunate whatever he does right now because he's this is lucky day. Elish Zocha Badin. He will actually, if you take him to Beis Din or whatever, you get him into courts, still you'll lose. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Marom Mishpatecha Minegdo, as if he's above the law. Literally, your mishpat, your judge, your justice, your rules have been lifted off from before him. Not only that, not only will he win in court, Ella Sheroa B'Tzarav. He will see his enemies implicitly, lose or fall, waste away, or whatever, blown away. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Kol Tzarav, all the people who oppose him, Yafiach B'Hem, he just literally blows them away. Question mark. So in other words, just the structure, we see a lot of details, but the macro structure of the piece here is proposition. It's mutter to take up, contend, compete, oppose a Rasha. You should, if he does something wrong, you should take up an issue with him. As the pasuk says, ... And if a voice says to you, no, another pasuk says ... So say, no, that's not pshat in the pasuk. Period. Then the Gemara says, so then therefore the proposition stands. You should take up and oppose Rishayim. Then the Gemara says, Eini, we have a kasha. How can you say that? Based on this pasuk in Mishlei, we said don't mess around with the Rasha when the Shamas Chekeslo, when he's on a streak, because everything he'll be successful in everything he does, Midas touch, and it's he's above the law, and if you oppose him, he'll just blow you away. Question mark. So how do you resolve those 2 points? So lo kasha, the first answer is, no, it's not a kasha. We're talking about 2 different. It's not a kasha, because we're talking about 2 different cases. It depends. Habamili didei, habamili dishmaya. Depends what you're taking up issue about. If you're standing up, so to speak, for heaven, you're taking up some spiritual, there's some issue of matter of Torah, kavod Torah, let's say. For kavod Torah, let's say, or whatever, kavod Shemayim, you can take up and oppose the guy. But if you're talking about your own personal, like he just, he's, I don't know, he's encroaching on your property. So don't fight with him. This first answer is thing. Whereas if he's not giving proper kavod to the rabbi, then you shut him up. That's the difference. Miladi day, if it's your own matter, if the guy's, a mobster and he's having to your next door neighbor, just like, psh, because he'll mow you down. But if he's doing wrong to the community or not giving tzedakah or whatever, he's insulting, Torah, then take a bar. So that's the first answer. That's what the two different cases. Viboy Seima, second approach is Hav Milad Shmaya. So the second answer is, of course, we're never talking about your own personal right. That's not the point. That we would never think you don't fight with him. You're crazy. Lay low. But even if he's doing wrong, klape shma, I don't know what he's being nasty to the rabbis, whatever it is. He's not doing properly. He's talking in shul. Let's say whatever the story is, right? Lo kasha. But even in the talking in shul issue, whatever it is, or whatever against the rabbi, it still depends. Hab rasha shasha maschekes lo. Hab rasha emasha hasha maschekes lo. The first case was in general. If you see some guy talking lashon hara, shut him up. But if he's on his shamas chekaslo, if he's got the Midas touch and everything's going right for him, then steer clear of him because now's not the time to take up issue. So that's clear in the words, right? The first story said mutter to contend with Rishayim, and then it said, but not if it's shamas chekaslo, not if he's on a winning streak. Steer clear. Viboy Seima, option 3. We're saying even if, we're almost backtracking really, even if it's shamas chekaslo, he's on a streak, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. It depends. Lo kasha, ha b'tzadik gamor, ha b'tzadik she'eno gamor. It depends who you are. If you're at tzadik gamor and you got a clean, whatever, slate conscience, so you could take up issue, you're okay. But if you also got your things to work on, then it's no time to fight with the guy. If he's
Shwan Esrei, Nafshiti Dom, we say, is that what kind of like it's talking?
That means it's insulting you, just feel overlook it, not get worked up, whatever. It's trying to do bad by you. Here we're talking about. It seems that we've perhaps even retreated from the Milad Shmaya issue. I made a chart, a little complicated. The first answer was it depends if it's your personal right or you're taking up Hashem's cause. Let's call it. The second answer was it depends if it's the guy's on a winning streak or not on a winning streak. The third answer now we're saying is even if he's on a winning streak, it depends. If you're at Tzaddik Gamor, then you could take up issue. And maybe even if it's a personal matter for all I know. It's not clear, right? But if you're not at Tzaddik Gamor and he's on a winning streak, just steer clear because the schus of Hashem's protection won't help you. What you have coming to you that you managed to avoid because you have whatever averos on your plate, well now it'll be payday for you to get paid, so steer clear of that.
Makes sense.
And the fourth answer is the fourth one here. I'm sorry. The Amar of Huna is the proof that it depends if you're at Tzaddik Gamor or not. The Amar of Huna, Ma Dichsev, what does it mean when the pasuk says Lama tabit bogdim? Why do you look at Bogdim, Asham Bagadnu, like bad guys? Why do you, and Mabit, to look at, why do you look at bad guys? Tacharish, and yet you remain silent. The Bala Rasha Tzaddik Menu, and the Rasha, you see as the Rasha, and he's gobbling up someone who's more righteous than him. So, end quote. So, the point that we're focusing on the second part of the pasuk, really, which is you see that the reason why we're reading this pasuk is that you see that a Rasha is swallowing a tzaddik. That's what we're focusing on, right? The tzaddik's at the beginning of nowhere. So the chi Rasha bolei at tzaddik, he asks, can a Rasha run over at tzaddik? That's not the case. Haksiv, because another pasuk says Hashem lo yazvenu biyado, Hashem will never abandon the tzaddik. And uksiv lo yu'une l'tzaddik kolaven, nothing bad will ever happen to a tzaddik. Ella, so he answers, well, the pasuk said that the Rasha swallows up not a tzaddik, but he swallows up tzaddik mimenu, someone who's more righteous than he is. So the point is, we'll differentiate. If you're really a tzaddik, meaning tzaddik gamor, in objective terms, you're an absolute tzaddik, so then nothing's going to happen to you, which will protect you, and therefore you can fight with the Rasha, and you're going to come out on top. But if it's just that you're a better man than he is, well, he can swallow you up because you're tzaddik mimenu. And in relative terms, you might be a tzaddik, but in absolute terms, you got where to grow, and he will gobble you up. El tzaddik mimenu bolea. So the Gemara says, If you're just tzaddik, more righteous than he, the Rasha, then he'll gobble you up. Tzaddik Gamor, if you're an absolute tzaddik, nothing on your plate, nothing on your slate, if you will, so then Eino B'Leh, you won't be able to swallow him. And the last case, the last Iboy Sema, the last approach, the fourth approach, is Shamas Chekes Lo Shani. Simply, the rule is like this: if the Shamas Chekes Lo, if the guy's had on a streak, then it doesn't matter if you're tzaddik Gamor, it doesn't matter what. The guy's, for whatever reasons, the stars are aligned, and now is not the time to pretend with them Nukuda. And therefore, the original point was Mutlas Garas, you can take up issue, or say, but not if it's Shamas Chekes Lo. If everything's going right for the guy and he's on the street, so then just steer clear, because whatever Ashkafa is playing itself out, you'll get run down by it.
Shkaf.
Understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.